when you talked about lubrication, what's one of the best ways to get the body lubricated and make sure the joints are staying lubricated is by drinking water. If health is a state of mental, physical, spiritual, and social well-being, a state in which the body is functioning at 100% and not merely the absence of disease, then why is it that black people are the least healthy race on the planet?
Welcome to Black Health by Evoke, a podcast where we discuss the unfair access to care, health inequality, and the cultural and generational impact of poor health in our communities.
It's time for us to take responsibility for our own health. Meet Dr. E, Dr. T, and myself, Dr. V. We want black people to be encouraged and empowered, for our people are perishing for lack of knowledge. It's time for black health to thrive, not just survive.
Good day, gentlemen. Good day. Good day.
What's going on?
How you fellas doing, Dr. E and Dr. V?
We are doing
And Dr.
good.
T.
Dr. T.
And myself, Dr. T.
And yourself, Dr. T.
Right. How's it going, fellas? What a wonderful day it is.
It is, man. It really
It's
is.
a great day.
Man.
It really is a great day. We was just commenting on how beautiful the weather it is. Right
Right.
now it's wintertime, but to get any day over 50 degrees during the winter here in St. Louis, I take it.
Mhm.
I take it.
And even
I'll
getting
take it all day.
outside and walking the dog and being able to exercise and be mobile and move those knees and hips and ankles.
That's if you can walk.
That's if you can walk. Right.
You're able to walk back.
You know what? Sometimes my dog feel like he walking me.
That's because
You
you
know what
walking
I'm
a polar bear. You walking a grizzly bear. Dr. Ball walk a grizzly bear through the neighborhood.
And, you know, it's but I'm glad to get him back out. I'm glad
Yeah.
to get him back out. It's fresh air. Fresh air.
Yes, sir, man. I mean, it's
Yeah.
nice to be able to get out on a day like today and walk and be able to do things and hang out with your family and, and go shopping and do all the things you enjoy doing, on a day like today. But not everybody can do that. Not everybody's able, right?
Yeah. They're not
thought-
able.
They not, everybody ain't able.
But are they willing though? Hey,
Right,
that's the
right.
thing, because you gotta be willing before you actually able. And that's a significant point.
I mean, that's the
a
key,
good
right?
point. You know, you gotta get the wheels going. You gotta get the wheels going. You gotta get the wheels going.
Well, it's a couple reasons why some people are not able to get out and walk. You ask somebody to get out and walk. Sometimes people got some decent complaints, but still something that can be done about them complaints.
Right.
But it's a crutch that they use, so I don't have to walk.
Exactly.
Well, one of the things I'm seeing in practice right now, especially with the weather changing, you got the trick elbow, the trick knee, the trick hip, the respiratory distress, and I was always told, it was because you didn't wear your long johns.
That's right.
You if you don't wear your long johns when you get a little bit older, it's gonna be some crickles and some crackles in those hinges and the hinges.
You're right. This is the time of year where people get to asking you about does the cold weather really affect your joints? What about that thing, the barometric pressure? I heard the barometric pressure is bad for your joints. That's what we hear that a lot this time of year. And my comment a lot of times is, the barometric pressure and the cold weather are going to affect joints that are not performing well. They will not affect joints that are performing well. So if you have, joints that aren't doing very, very well, then those things can really affect you. And the key is to figure out what's going on with yourself and what to do about it.
Yeah.
And it's just go ahead, Dr. Tibbler.
No, I want to know what y'all talking about. So why are my joints hurting then? So why if it was me, I'm not saying that my joints are hurting, but
Right.
If I can't get out and walk, I just can't walk, right?
Right.
Well,
right.
depending on the joint, I think. I know there's specific joints that you use every single time, with the majority of the motions that you use, whether it be getting up, walking, standing out of a chair, taking care of your kids, in and out the shower, in and out the bed, up and off the toilet.
Right.
These things are all these joints are always being impacted. They're always being used, and oftentimes when people think y'all thinking about the toilet right now, but I'm thinking about rising. All right, and when you talk about rising, you're talking about the joints that actually get a lot of the stress, and those are those knees.
Yeah.
Those knees.
They put in so much work for us, don't they?
Man, you know, and you know, I had a little knee pain. I rubbed WD-40 on them. It didn't work, Doc.
Didn't work.
It didn't work. It didn't
I heard that
lubricate
work.
them.
I heard that work.
You know, what part of the country were you in?
I was south of the Mason-Dixon.
You know, and really just bringing us to talking about something that and I know you guys here because we talk about it all the time, knee pain.
Yeah.
Knee pain. And my question for you guys, I mean, all of us were athletes. All of us are, of course, doctors, and we're working out actively. For the average, you know, adult, the average person, just putting a box in. Some people are in the box, some people are outside of the box, some people are way above the box. What is the primary? Because I heard you say barometric pressure. What are the primary functions or things that actually cause the knee problems?
You know, I think it can be a combination of things. It's really, you know, the short answer of it all, but it's really some things that are really specific that really cause the knees to go into dysfunction. I would say the number one thing is just simply lack of use. It's a big joint. Your knee is a big joint, and it needs to be moved, and it needs to be active constantly in order for it to function the way it's supposed to. The ligaments and the muscles and the fluid in the joints, for all that stuff to be moving, it needs to kind of stay lubricated and stay active.
Yeah. I would add to that, on top of lack of use, is carrying a little more extra weight or pounds on some joints.
Okay.
That really shouldn't be carrying as much weight as it does.
Yeah.
Bone on bone.
Yeah. Bone on bone.
Bone on bone. Well, not just the bone on bone, but the actual extra stuff that comes on the bones as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
So and then also too, one of the things is repetitive motion stress coming from Detroit. Those guys on the line having to bend down, pick up, bend down, pick up, bend down, pick up. You know, do whatever function that is that they have to do. Not wearing bracing, probably having bad technique at the time. You start off really young while you're doing it in these factories. You get a little older, and all of a sudden the technique for how you were doing things aren't as effective as they are in your latter years. So you get some damage.
Yeah, and being on your feet, like you said, for those hours and hours at a time can be really stressful on the joints, especially on those hard surfaces. But just as stressful can be sitting for long periods of time. You know, a lot of people work desk jobs now. Most people are working a computer nowadays. So they're sitting for hours and hours at a time with the knees bent, allowing for those hamstrings and those quads to get all tight. When those get tight, it really affects the function of the knee.
Definitely.
You know, I heard you say something about lubrication within the joint. And one of the things, you know, as far as some people's joints, they get a small space in between them. Some people's joints have a big space. And I've seen small people with small spaces, and I've seen big people with big spaces. You know, how do we lubricate the joint, or we make sure through movement that we're getting lubrication within the joint properly?
I think you just answered your own question, because that's the purpose of movement. Any joints that you move in the body is going to help to lubricate the joints and keep the joints functional. But I think the other thing that Dr. Everett alluded to was, one, the amount of sitting that we do in this country now, because of, you know, whether it's related to work, sometimes the drive period, you know, getting back and forth to work, or just plain flat out being lazy and sitting on the couch all day.
Right.
That lack of movement, the position that the knees are in for that period of time, really, I think, adds to most of the issues and pain when it comes to the knee that you would see with people.
Yep. And you know, in age is one that we talk about a lot as well. You know, our joints do decay in age over time. That is a fact. But when you do things like sit for long periods, like Dr. Tibbler was saying, where you sit for long periods and you're inactive and all those things, you really speed up that process. You speed up that degenerative process, because your knees are supposed to last your whole lifetime. They're not supposed to just start breaking down, you know, without any major injury or anything like that. They're not supposed to start breaking down at age 50.
And so I oftentimes hear people, you were talking about sitting on the couch, Dr. Tipler, as far as with that lack of motion and movement. One of the things that I hear a lot of people talk about is hooking those TENS units up to their knees. You see the commercial with the zap the abs, and then it zap the abs. Can you put that on your knee and put some juice in your knee as well?
I mean, that's one of the things that you can do to kind of help with the pain. But, again, that's something that symptom based. You're just treating the pain. And really, when it comes to any type of joint pain, especially when dealing with the knees, it's more beneficial if you get on some type of routine to actually take care of the problem that's causing a lot of the pain. And like we said, even though the causes, we talked about with the sitting and things like that, but what does that sitting cause? Yeah. Dr. Everett again alluded to it. Sitting and you having your knees bent for such a long period of time, it starts to change the dynamic and the function of the muscles that actually allow the knees to bend and do what they're supposed to do, to bend and extend the knees. You got certain muscles and tendons and ligaments surrounding that knee, and once those things start to become tight or overstretched or overused, that's what then starts leading to a lot of the issues in dealing with the knee, whether it be from a sprain strain, whether it be from I think one of you guys just said it, the deterioration that starts to happen in that joint.
Yeah, I think, and so a lot of times we have practice members that come into our office and they say, they got knee issues, and then I take the knee and they got full range of motion. I can go back to front, and they got full range of motion in the knee, but their knees hurt. That's one of those indicators that it's a muscle issue. Just like Dr. Tipler was talking about, the quads are too tight, the hamstrings are too tight. These are all the muscles that come around, and basically those tendons from those muscles make the knee brace of that knee. That's what gives it that stability. So when those quads get really, really tight, it's like stretching that rubber band real tight. Of course, they're going to be sore and achy if that rubber band is stretched too tight and you're not doing anything to loosen it up. So we see that a lot where people will have kind of like all these trigger points in their quads, right? They quads hurt all the way up to their hips. And you stretch them out for 30 seconds and their knees just kind of feel better. And that's most people. Most people are dealing with, again, a lack of use when it comes to those knee joints, not necessarily arthritis.
A lot of, so they say the father of all diseases. The father of all diseases, it has been said that it starts off with inflammation, right? So are all knee problems within the body, or the vast majority of the knee problems in the body, would you say that from what you see, because what I'm hearing is lack of motion and sedentary, but what about inflammation? Because when we're seeing the knees, inflammation oftentimes is closing the space and starting degeneration. So if you're having the bone spurs, the knee spurs, and things of that nature, those things oftentimes aren't directly caused by an injury or an impact. They're oftentimes caused by some type of inflammatory process. Now, how can we rid ourselves of inflammatory processes, and what are some of the things that do cause inflammation in the knees as far as from that standpoint?
Well, Dr. Vaught, you starting to sound like how the medical community sometimes take issues when it comes to something. It's like, oh, you have this systemic issue going on, so we just gonna attack this problem right here. We just gonna do something about your blood pressure, even though you got high cholesterol, diabetes, and all these other things. So when you talk about inflammation, man, it's a systemic thing. So even though the knees may be the joints that you're primarily having issues with, when you have inflammation, it's basically going to be a systemic thing, right? Mm-hmm. So like you said, how do we correct this problem, or where does it come from? We have to look at everything when we're talking about inflammation. You got to look at everything. So there you go. So not just the things that we're doing day in and day out, the sitting, not being mobile, but also the food that we're eating that's putting a lot of toxins in the body, causing the body to respond and become in an inflammatory state, as well as the lack of water that we drink. So when you talked about lubrication, what's one of the best ways to get the body lubricated and make sure the joints are staying lubricated is by drinking water. I don't want to go too much scientific with it, but I remember being in school and there was this thing that we learned about when it comes to certain joints, the synovial fluid or a hyaluronic acid that you find in joints, but that is primarily made of H2 to the O, right? H2O, water. Oh, so high quality H2O. So you know, I would say, man, one of the first things, and I think Dr. Everett does the same thing. You know, when someone comes with these type of issues, the number one thing I ask them is, how much water are you drinking? And I know it sounds like, well, my knees hurting. Why you asking me about water? But that's the first place I try to get people started is, one, make sure you're drinking enough water, because if you're dehydrated, your knees are not going to be the only thing that starts to give you problems.
We're giving our listeners some tips, tools, techniques that's going to help them kind of deal with some of the discomforts and things of that nature before they go into find a chiropractor and make these changes. But some people I know, they'll come in and they'll say, I'll put some ice on it. Some people say, I'll put some heat on it. You know, what are you all stances as far as the correct way to, as far as give a passive therapy like that for the knees, ice and heat on the joints?
You know, for me, man,
on the knees, on the knees,
yeah, on the knees particularly. I come from a background in personal training, athletic training, all those different things, man. And I came in under the time when, you know, anytime you get inflammation, you have an injury, you get swelling, you get all these things, you go to rest, ice, compression, and elevation, right? We all know that, right? Ice. So my first rule of thumb for someone that comes and they have inflammation, they have swelling, they have just an achy type of pain, I usually always start them, hey, start with some ice. And if heat makes it feel better, because that's the thing, is like, well, heat makes it feel better. I understand that, but we want to get rid of the problem. So I always go back to start off with ice first, ice for about 10, 15 minutes, put heat on it for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then end it with ice for another 10 or 15 minutes. And that the purpose of that, especially if there's swelling or inflammation, it helps to get the circulation to moving.
Could you repeat that one more time? Could you repeat that sequence? Repeat that sequence. How you do it?
Yeah, always start them with ice for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then heat for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then back again with ice for another 10 or 15 minutes. That takes about an hour, that whole treatment, 45 minutes to an hour, and that's something that you can repeat every couple of hours or so. But the reason I have people do that, man, is because anytime you get inflammation, damage to any part of the body, physically, you want to get the blood to moving. You get the blood to circulating, because healing is in the blood, right? Power is in the blood, in the healing. So that's what I instruct people to do, man. Even though now I get a lot of people coming in and it's like, well, my doctor told me to just don't use ice, to use heat. And so I go back to my old way of what I was taught and what works best for what I've done in the past.
Yeah, and it's actually what works best. Because we know the mechanisms that happen when you put heat on a joint, right? Especially when you put excessive amounts of heat on an inflamed joint, right? You end up just making the problem worse. We know that, physiologically. So, heat can be a part of the process, but it cannot be the main way that you treat an inflamed joint. Like Dr. Tipler was saying, going back and forth with that ice and that heat and making sure you're primarily using ice to cool that joint down is a really good way to go about it. A lot of times we'll see athletes in the way that they treat their knees, like they won't even have a knee injury, right? It's just that you use your knees so much. For example, if you're playing basketball, you just use the muscles and the tendons around that knee, and that joint shifts and moves so much that they'll ice anyway, right? With no knee problems, they'll ice anyway because of the amount of inflammation that can happen. Now, imagine if you are not an athlete and your muscles are not as strong and as developed as some of these athletes are, and you're moving around all day and you're putting stress on it, like Dr. Voss said, you're standing on the line at GM all day long, what that can be doing to your joints. Now, these professional athletes are treating their knees when they stress them out. I would recommend that, that people be doing the same thing when they're stressing out their knees, on their job.
Definitely.
Just for the viewers too, and I gotta know, because every doctor has their what I call a sweet spot, and that sweet spot as far as after they're doing the work, they're doing the exercises, they're being more conscious, we're drinking the water, we got our heat compressors, our cool compressors in the perfect order, Dr. T, the perfect order, right? The perfect order. What are your top 3 supplements, the top 3 supplements that you guys, when you're sitting down with somebody, and I know it could be, condition specific, whether it's a rheumatoid knee or a psoriatic knee or Baker's cyst or whatever, but what are your top 3 supplements, when you're moving in a direction to help your body heal?
You're asking me, so I guess I'll go first before Dr. Evans steals mine. I have to think a little bit more.
Exactly. Dr. Ball like throw curveballs.
Right.
He like throw curveballs.
I got to think. Hold on, man.
Right.
I think, of course, the main thing, man, is already making sure that, they're taking some type of multivitamin. I think a multivitamin just to kind of give a ground basis of something that the body's going to need, because there's not one specific thing I think that's going to help with just any type of joint discomfort, but especially talking about the knees, I would say a multivitamin, a good vitamin D vitamin, and then maybe something for inflammation, such as like turmeric or something like that.
Okay. Now I'm anxious to hear yours, Dr. Everett, because I know that I came to you personally when my knee, I was crawling and then hopping on one leg, and you had a lot of tips, tools, and techniques for me to get me moving forward. So no pressure.
So first off, Dr. Tippler took 2 of my 3.
See, that's how much we talk, man.
That's what I'm saying. Because he get the best one, right? If we love to get the best advice here on the Black Health Podcast, I will not give inferior advice, Dr. Ball. But I'm gonna cheat a little bit. One of the ones I will add to that anti-inflammatory is vitamin E.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that one is really, really important. But the other supplement that I want to mention again is water.
Okay.
Because that is our top anti-inflammatory.
That's true.
Right? The other and that's really the way that we should be thinking about water, right? It's not just to quench your thirst. Right? It's to nourish your body. It's to make sure that it's functioning at its best. And in this case, when we're talking about inflammation in the joints and how they function and all that, water is still number 1.
Yeah.
And water is going to be number 1 for most of the things that we talk about because it's that important. But yeah, so Dr. Vaught, that would be my other supplement that I believe people should take.
Okay.
Is the daily dose, right? The daily dose of water. Now, if you want me to put out a product where I sell water in capsules, I can do that. So people can take 3 in the morning, and then 3 at lunch, and then 3 at dinner, and then 3 at night. I mean, people, before it was bottled water, people thought that guy was crazy, right?
I think they got the water pill already out there. The water pill is in full effect.
That's for something else. That's for something else. That's for something else.
Get rid of the water that's in their body.
Exactly.
He nourishing the body with some water.
There you go.
Right.
H2O.
Look for the Black Health water capsules coming out soon in the spring of 2023.
Definitely.
But Dr. I'd like to add one other thing, man. It's not a supplement, but I think we can't leave out an opportunity to get people active and moving and taking control of their own health. You have to stretch. Dr. Everett mentioned it earlier. Some of the muscles around the knee that act as like that bracing, that stability, it gives stability to the knee. if you're having problems with achy knees, problems with the knees, the best stretches that you can do is starting to stretch the hamstrings and stretching the quad muscles. Stretch the hamstrings and the quad muscles. Address those muscles, and you can start to change the way that your knees are feeling.
Yep. You know, and I got to add to that too, Dr. Tipler, because the exercise thing is something. A lot of us have these gym memberships, and they have these pools in there. And the majority of the time, you can go in there. You can always find a lane. You can always find something. You go in there and just walk in the pool. Just walking in the pool frontward, turn around backwards, and then side to side, you will incorporate and work on all of those muscles, like Dr. Everett was talking about, the knee brace the natural knee brace that's supposed to be around there. It will work on taking the gravity off the knee, allowing them to have good glide in there and lubrication to work really well.
Dr. V, I agree, man, but I was about to ask you, what gym do you go to? Because gyms ain't got no pool.
Don't got a pool? Well, you know what? You know what you got to do? What you got to do? Get in your bathtub.
Pool of water trying to work in the gym.
If you get in your bathtub, and you put water up to your belly button, you do leg extensions and squeeze hard and release. You will have a non-gravity workout in there. Work real great.
I said we only give high quality advice on this show. It's been a while, Dr. Walt. It's been a while since you belong to a gym with no pool, huh? He forgot. It's been so long. He forgot that they don't have pools at every gym.
Obviously,
you know what?
Obviously.
I said for the people that have a membership that walk past the pool. Okay, for those. And by the way, both of you all's gym membership have pools too. By the way, I just to let you throw me under the bus. Oh God!
On that note,
membership.
Right. Wait a minute. Your wife see it have a pool?
I said that is the Y membership, not my gym membership.
That's yeah.
Kind of why you go to.
I know what I was saying.
On that note, fellas, we want to thank everyone for tuning in to the Black Health by Evoke podcast, where all we're trying to do is deliver the greatest bits of knowledge that we can come up with for you guys to really, really move forward in your health. That's our overall goal every single time we turn on these videos, every single time we sit in front of these microphones, is to make sure that we're helping you to get healthier in everything that you do. So as always, we thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure, like Dr. Vaught always says, to like and subscribe and share.
Please.
I stole your line today, Dr. Vaught.
Thank you.
But we appreciate you all, and we love you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Black Health by Evoke.
He who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything.
You can find us at www.evokingblackhealth.com or all social media platforms at Evoking Black Health.